Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, today I'm going to be doing a recap of the Ruston and Ouachita game from last year. So we got a much anticipated matchup coming up this Friday between two powerhouses with Ruston and Ouachita. So I'm just going to be going through and just breaking down some film and kind of just looking at some things that both teams can do to be successful to make sure that they come out victorious on this upcoming matchup Friday. So we're going to get straight into it, man. So the very first play, you got Ouachita in the 2nd and 15, and obviously Ouachita for the most part, everything that they do is out of shotgun. Obviously, because when you're running from shotgun, when you have a shotgun formation, it allows you to be able to do RPOs. And right here, you can see that that's what it was right here. The quarterback had an opportunity to either hand the ball off to the running back, or he had opportunity to keep the ball and run himself, or he had opportunity to just throw the ball to the receiver. So right here, he got a favorable matchup that he wanted. You got Ruston playing man to man. And obviously, one of his go-to guys is going to be Waddell Clark. And I like Waddell Clark because he's a guy that you can move around the offensive formation. He's a guy that you can line up on the outside. He's a guy that you can line up on the slide. He's a guy that you can not even line up in the backfield. He's a guy that you can line up in a wildcat. So he's going to be one of the main things that you want to contain if you're Ruston, to be able to make sure that he doesn't kill you. So right here, you get a one-on-one matchup. Number 17 kind of has his eyes on the backfield, looking at the quarterback, as if it was a zone coverage. You see that he also was shading inside, trying to force him possibly to go outside based off of a leverage standpoint, knowing that the outside throw would have been much harder than throwing the ball inside. But right here, he just allows Waddell Clark for one, a free release and just across his face. And obviously, man, once Waddell Clark gets a free release, that's probably not what you want, because more times than not, there's not too many people that's going to be able to run with him. So he's able to just run across his face, run a slant. Quarterback did a good job at putting that thing on the money, allowing for him to be able to run after the catch. And that's one of the things that Ruston is going to have to make sure that they do, is that they keep this guy contained. So right here, you got the first guy to have a situation for the defense, man. Obviously, when you're looking at a team, you want to identify the guy to have situations, right? You want to identify the guy to have situations. You want to identify the guy to have it players, and you want to identify the guy to have it plays. And obviously, two of the guy to have it guys for Ouachita is going to be their running back and going to be their wide receiver, Waddell Clark. So right here, you see that they send Waddell Clark in motion. Right. So to me, I think that this could be a setup for later on down in the game to try to set up something to try to get it started now and then to come back to it eventually. But right here, you see that they send him in motion, but they don't do anything with him. They don't throw a screen to him, throw the ball to him, anything like that. For me, I think that it was more so a distraction to get the defense focused on him, because they probably were anticipating that this is who's going to be getting this ball and this got to have a situation. But they end up running a screen play to the running back. But the pressure just was able to get upfield to the get to the quarterback very, very quickly. And he just wasn't able to get the ball to him. So you see that on the outside edge, on both of the edge rushers, they just got straight up field. Obviously with it being a screenplay, the offensive line is going to eventually flow over to try to block for the running back. But sometimes you kind of might want to try to give some type of little chip or some type of little nudge to try to slow down the momentum, because if not, if you just give them free releases to the quarterback, man, more times than not, that's going to result in a negative play just like this one right here. So right here, Ouachita had a possible one-on-one matchup. And, I think that this was a matchup that they probably wanted to take advantage of whenever they did get it. And that's a one-on-one matchup with Waddell Clark out the slot matched up on a safety. And that's exactly what happened on the long catch and run. They got him matched up one-on-one with the safety, and he was able to win that matchup and was able to catch the ball and, run for an additional 6 yards after the catch. So they had an opportunity to exploit that matchup right here. Now, granted, I think that once they sent him in motion and they seen that the guy that he was lined up on, number 12, didn't follow him across the formation, that probably was an indicator that, okay, that they're probably not in man, that they're probably in zone, because the way Ruston play, like I said, they just bump on down and it shows that it's a possible zone. Obviously, you see that this is a single high safety, so it's either going to be a cover one or a cover three. And obviously, post snap, if it would have been a cover three, then the corners would have bailed to get to that deep third, because that's their assignment, is stand deep down, stay over the top of the receiver. Don't let the receiver get behind them. But I think that, that this possibly could have been another matchup that they could have exploited once again. I don't really like the idea of leaving him matched up one-on-one without any type of bracket coverage, especially, on a safety. Safeties normally aren't the most athletic guys. And, when you're dealing with a quick and shifty guy like Waddell Clark, that's probably not a matchup that you want to, consistently find yourself in. So on this play right here, I believe that another key to being able to contain Ouachita for the most part is that Ouachita looks like they are a one read team, meaning that whenever they throw the ball, you have one read, and if that one read isn't there, then are they able to find the second best option? So right here, you see that obviously his read was Waddell Clark. You got Waddell Clark lined up in the slot once again. They do a good job at being able to contain him. If you see that they got number 17 matches him, he carries him vertically upfield for a while, and then he gets his hands on him and he just dips off kind of towards the going towards the flat. But he did kind of carry it a little bit more vertical up the field. But when you look at it, when he carried it up here at this point, it's almost like a double coverage. It's like because you got the safety, number 8, Jay Nandy, that's over the top of him, and then you got number 17, Trendon Moore, who was still kind of underneath him. So for a temporary slight second, if the quarterback look over there, it looks like a bracket coverage, right? Now, once that option wasn't there, he still tried to force that ball into there, which was kind of risky, especially considering that you had a linebacker. That was a muddy look, basically, right? And a muddy look is when you have a lot of defenders in one area, that increases the chances of you being able to throw an interception, but then also, too, it increases the chances of you being able to get your wide receiver killed, especially when you coming across the middle. But you did have a safe route, a check down route, because this was second down, so you could have just checked it down right there to the running back and see if he could have just made some plays in space, made some guys miss, and possibly get the first down. But still, it would have put you in position to still be able to even put you in a little bit better of a field position to make it a more manageable third down play. Prior to this play, 2 plays before this play, or 2 sequences before this play, you had a little back and forth. So you had Ouachita, who were at 3rd and 4th, 3rd and short. They get hit with a false start call, which pushes them backwards. As soon as they get hit with the false start call, Ruston get hits with an offsides, 2 guys jumping into the neutral zone. So it pushes them back into a 3rd and short situation, right? So when we talked about gotta have it, this is another gotta have it situation, a 3rd down play, right? So another gotta have it. Normally, typically, certain teams you play that don't have quarterbacks that can extend plays, the gotta-have-it guys are going to be guys that they're going to be getting the balls to. But when you're dealing with a quarterback like Montreal Connor, a guy who has the ability to run, and he has the ability like Mike Lombardi would say, and Bill Belichick would say, he has the ability to make the second play better than the first play, meaning that if all else fails, he can utilize his athleticism to be able to pick up those crucial yards, which he does right here. So right here, you see on the outside, the quarterback, they got pressure. Really, it looked like they were really playing a contain with number 97. It don't look like he was really trying to get inside. It looked like he kind of was trying to keep him contained in the pocket. But he just does a good job of just being able to step up, being a quick, shifty guy, and to be able to pick up that first down. So right here, we got another guy to have a situation. We got a 4th and 4. So you see they got a trips set. So they've actually ran this formation a few times. They just ran it to the opposite side. And like we say, man, offenses are very repetitive. For the most part, you're going to see a lot of the same plays and a lot of the same concepts. It might just be out of different formations, and it might just be from different sides. But you know that when it's a 4th down play, it's a gotta have it situation, right? So who are your gotta have it players, and what are their gotta have it plays? So obviously, we know that a gotta have it player for Ouachita is Waddell. So they're going to try to do whatever they can to try to get him the ball. We've seen them try to give him the ball down, like kind of in the short to intermediate area with the slants. And now we see him trying to get the ball with just quick throw, get it in his hands in space, and allow for him to just do what he does. And that's make guys miss. So, and put Ruston in one-on-one tackle, open field tackling situations like this one right here, because if he makes this tackle, then that's a turnover on downs, but he misses the tackle. And then Waddell's able to run for, an additional 5 yards after contact, opposed to being hit in the backfield and drop for a loss. But they run a trip set and they just run a wide receiver screen. Like I said, man, their whole thing is to just get the ball in his hands in space and allow for him to be, just do what he does. And this was just, a good execution on Waddell's part. The ball was kind of thrown a little high. I think if the ball might have been thrown a little bit more on point, it probably would have allowed for him to possibly be able to have much more yards after the catch. But by him kind of throwing it up high, he had to go up high, get it, come back down, and be able to try to get himself set and be able to make the guy miss. But good read on number 0's part. You just got to make that play whenever you find yourself in that situation. So right here, you see on this play, you got Waddell lined up in a much tighter split. So we've seen him lined up typically in the slot, but right here, he's lined up a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. And just look at the get off of the ball. Like, man, just look at how fast he's able to get downfield off the ball. Like, look at this, man. This is one of those things where on this play right here, you would have wanted to see number 17 maybe do as if he did on the previous play where he got hands on him, because if not, you're giving him a free release getting down to your safety, who he already has a advantage on when it comes to a leverage standpoint. So you really want to try to avoid giving him free releases, because with that type of speed, you want to try to slow that down in some shape, form, or fashion. But even look at this too. Even if he would have been able to get hands on him and slow him down at the kind of the top of that route, look at, you got number 94 and then you got number 21 coming off of the edge. So the pressure was going to get there eventually. So if you get your hands on him and kind of make it somewhat like a bracket coverage, like on one of the plays earlier, it might make the quarterback have to, try to force that ball out of his hands much quicker than he might have wanted to, or just end up having to hold on to the ball just to take a sack on that play. But like I said, man, in those situations, man, you most definitely want to try to get your hands on him and not give him a free release coming upfield. Now, I know after the game, man, I know that when they went back and watched film, and even after that play, I know the quarterback probably was kicking himself in the butt like, man, I got to capitalize on those plays, right? So you remember early on in the quarter when they ran a play where they ran Waddell in motion, I was like that if not only to identify what the defense is in, I think that this could be some type of setup later on in the game. And I think, too, that it's more of a decoy thing, too. Like, obviously, he's having a pretty good first quarter. So when you see him go in motion, you're kind of anticipating that some way, somehow the ball is possibly coming back to him. Now, I'm going to show you some too that was actually a overlooked play on Waddell Clark on this play as well. So notice that when they run the play action fake, number 12 comes crashing down very, very hard. And the running back ended up missing him. But Waddell was able to kind of get in front of him to kind of just slow down his trajectory, which allowed for the quarterback to have just a little bit more time. Now, granted, I think that he probably was anticipating that the defender was going to get to him much quicker than what he did. So he probably had to get rid of it a tad bit quicker than what he might have wanted to. But Waddell ended up picking up that blister to an extent. So he did have a little split second. And had he known that, and would have been able to anticipate that, he possibly would have been able to hit the guy on the money for a possible touchdown. If not a touchdown, then a pretty explosive play downfield. But like I say, man, the play action fake is kind of what killed them. You see that once they seen Waddell going in motion, they probably figured that it was probably going to be some type of jet sweep or something like that. And they just came crashing down. And then when they came crashing down, it allowed for the receiver, I think that might have been a tight end, to get behind the defense, and they just created one of those hole shots that almost resulted in a touchdown. So on this play right here, man, you had another got to have a situation. So they found themselves very much behind the stick. So on the previous play, the second down play, they ended up trying to run to look like some type of wide receiver screen. Ruston did a good job at rallying to the ball, being able to make a tackle for the loss on that play. And then they ended up getting hit with a false start, which pushed them back even further. So they found themselves in a 3rd and 20. And man, this was just like I said, once again, man, that's kudos to Connor's ability to be able to make plays with his legs. Like Belichick and them say, man, the ability to be able to make the second play much better than the first play, right? And like I said, man, one thing for the most part we see with Ouachita, they are pretty much a one-read team. If you can take away that number one read, especially in long yardage situations, I will say that most definitely too. But if you could take away that first read, then more times than not, you pretty much have him. More times than not, I think that if you take away the first read with him, he's gonna look to utilize his athleticism, which is dangerous in itself as well. But if you look at it, man, Ruston really played this as good as you can play it, because you had a spy on him, which was number 21, Zarek Hill, and kind of just mirroring him step for step. You look at the defense was actually able to get pressure on him, and they almost was able to come up with a sack. But once again, man, him being so shifty and so elusive, he was able to slide out of that. Zarek came downhill, trying to make a play on him, and man, he just made a move with him on him in open space. And obviously, man, that's a hard ask to ask, a linebacker to be able to come downhill and make a tackle on a small, shifty, agile, athletic quarterback like Montreal Connor. He just puts a move on him, makes him fall down, and man, he's just able to eat up a lot of yardage. He ended up not getting the first down, but still though, he made it a possible easier field goal, or he made it a possible easier 4th down to go for it on that play. On the previous defensive possession, Ruston kind of had a bend but don't break mentality, where they end up, allowing them to get to the red zone, but they end up holding them when they needed to. And Ouachita went out to kick a field goal opposed to going for it on 4th down, which, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, it's all about what the coaches sees in practice. The coaches knows what he has on the field, and he knows the confidence that he has in his kicking team, or the confidence that he has in his offensive capability of being able to get the first down in that particular game or that particular situation. So they elected to kick the field goal. They end up missing the field goal by a lot. shot, which, end up leaving them high and dry with no points. So the very assuming possession for Ouachita offensively, they line up in a trips receiver. And if you can see that they were lining up in a lot of trips, and I think a lot of it was to try to confuse, to draw out confusion on Ruston's part defensively, because especially if you're playing man-to-man, you have to make sure that communication is there saying, hey, this is my man, I got that guy, or whatever the case may be, because the last thing that you want is to have two guys holding one person, leaving somebody else free. And it looks like they ran a high-low concept on this play right here too. And what I mean by that is you see that the quarterback rolls out. So pay attention to the tight end. He's running an out route, and pay attention to Waddell Clark. He's running an out route. So they call that a high-low read, because if the linebacker would have try to stay over the top on Waddell Clark, or try to get depth to try to take away it, then he would have just threw it to the tight end. But right here, he came down to try to defend the tight end, so he ended up throwing it to Waddell Clark, who was open, running an out route towards the sideline. So you got another guy to have a situation right here. You got 3rd and 5, and that's why I say that one of the keys for Ruston to be able to beat Ouachita is, trying to win 1st and 2nd down. And the reason why I say that is because if you can keep them in long yardage situation, it makes a team have to be one-dimensional on what they can do in terms of play calling wise. But if they can get themselves in 3rd and short, it opens up the possibilities. So like even with this play right here, you see that they just ran pretty much a RPO. So they could have, ran the ball like they did right here, or they could have also threw the ball. But if it would have been in the 3rd and long situation, more times not, they probably wasn't going to run no RPO. But I do like how, they're identifying that obviously, Ruston's playing, a pretty decent amount of man coverage. So you can use the Urban Meyer's philosophy when he say find the fish to beat man coverage, and the fish would be a mismatch that you have. And to me, a mismatch is in this slot where you see Waddell Clark once again being matched up on number 17 one-on-one. That's not a matchup that I idealistically like, because in my opinion on this play right here, you had two options in terms of the receivers on this play. You had they ran a double slant, so you had Waddell, who could have also been a possibility, but then you had the outside guy too, who was able to beat his matchup. You look at the outside corner, he was playing press coverage, and he double-handed jammed, and when he double-handed jammed, that threw him off balance, and he ended up he just ended up out leveraged. So if the quarterback was able to see that, who knows, that could have turned into another big play. But Ruston does a phenomenal job at being able to rally to the ball to minimize a gain, and that's also one of the downsides of running out of a shotgun formation, is that you don't give your running back a full head of steam. He doesn't already have a downhill start like how it would be if it was in an I formation, or maybe even in a pistol. But one of Ruston's strengths as a defense, especially last year and still even this year too, is their ability to be able to rally to the ball to minimize a game. So special teams is another concerning area for me going into Ouachita. Obviously, Ouachita has some athletes. And we've known that, and we've seen throughout the season so far this year, that Ruston have given up some explosive plays through special teams, not necessarily more so punts. But I think that they have been kicking the ball, obviously, because they've been scoring a lot. They've been kicking the ball more than they have been punting the ball. So I don't think that what they may have deficiencies in punting has really been exploited just yet. But we've seen where they lack in kick return. And obviously, when you're dealing with a guy like Waddell Clark, man, plays like this are the ones that scare you, especially when it's a play where the ball bounces and he has to catch it. If the pursuit isn't the way that it's supposed to be in terms of the kick return coverage or the punt return coverage, man, that guy right there can really hurt you. Now, granted, going back to last season in this game right here, that was one of the things that Ruston was pretty good, was their kick return and punt return coverage. So obviously you see that they were able to minimize the effectiveness of it, but opposed to them being backed up, he was able to catch the ball on the run and be able to put them in, in pretty good field position to where they can, be a little bit more open with the play call and not having to be so reserved because they having to worry about being backed up. Got another guy to have a situation right here, 3rd and medium. So for the most part, man, they were doing a good job of just putting themselves in other than when they, like a lot of the times that they found themselves in long yardage situations, it was because of penalties, like false start calls that they was constantly getting. So they were putting themselves behind the sticks because of that. It wasn't necessarily like every time that it was just phenomenal defensive play. I think that in a lot of ways, they just consistently kept shooting themselves in the foot. So right here, you got him in another 3rd and medium, a third and 5. And man, the pressure gets to him. I mean, they run a stunt where they showed that it looks like number 60 was going to be hitting one gap, and he just ended up bouncing it back to the outside, but they allowed number 95 to eat up a double team block right there. So when they ran the little stunt, he was a free runner towards the quarterback. And once again, man, he just does a good job at making guys miss that. More times than not, on a lot of these runs that he had, there was guys that was there to bring him down. He just was able to make a play, and that's going to be one of the things that they're going to most definitely have to do come Friday, is be very good and be very very disciplined and stick to the fundamentals of being able to get him down on the ground. You know what I mean? And then also too, the thing that I always talk about is the ball pursuit, getting to the football. Now, granted, in man coverage, it makes it a little bit more difficult because you got to think in man coverage, the defense's eyes for the most part are on their receivers. So your eyes isn't on in the backfield, nor should it be, because it needs to be focused on the receiver that you're holding. But when you're playing zone, you can play what they call zone eyes now, because now your eyes is on the quarterback. So whenever he moves and goes up to run or is trying to extend plays, for the most part, you're able to react much quicker. But when you're running a lot of man, a lot of times when you realize that he's running, it's probably too late. He's already got the first down. So just being able to pursue the ball aggressively would also help with just not making it a one-on-one, individual's assignment to be able to bring him down. Because like I say, once again, man, a guy that's that small, that fast, that shifty, it's very hard for a lot of those bigger guys to be able to bring him down in open space. So right here on this play, man, they lose containment on Connor again on the outside. So this looked like this was a cover 2 man, meaning that they had 2 deep safeties that were playing zone, and then everything underneath was man coverage. So once the outside edge rusher ran past the quarterback on that rush, it just allowed for a wide open hole for him to be able to just step up and be able to just try to eat up some yards with his feet. Obviously, the linebackers, Eric does a good job at recognizing that that's what he was doing and is able to close the distance on him to minimize that gain. But the thing is, like I say, man, if you're not playing active pursuit, if you're not pursuing the football from play to play, man, these type of plays that was minimized, this wasn't even a first down run. They were able to get to him before he was able to get the first down. But if you're not actively pursuing the ball aggressively, man, that could have very much been a much more explosive play than what it was. So right here we have a 3rd and 1 play where they take a shot downfield. I believe they took a shot on this play right here because it was 3rd and 1. And they knew that they knew that they were in 4th down territory. So they was like, we're gonna take a shot, and if we don't get it, then we'll just run the ball on 4th down, which they did end up picking up the first down on 4th down. But right here they just took a shot on the field. So I would say one of the things too that I'm seeing is that Ouachita did a good job at trying to move Waddell around and keeping him in the slot, knowing that Ruston probably was going to be playing a pretty decent amount of man coverage, so they can try to exploit some favorable matchups. And that's what you see a lot of, is him being matched up in a slot in somewhat mismatches. Like right here, you see that he's matched up on number 0. Number 0 is a more of a run stopper type of guy. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's somebody that I would want playing man coverage, especially on a deep part of the field. But you see right here on this play, once again, Montreal Connor rolls out. Ruston was able to put some pressure on him, obviously, to get him off of his spot. So he rolls out the pocket. Now, the thing is that I believe on this play initially, this was probably actually well covered. I mean, because you're looking at, they have a center field safety, which is number 8. So I believe that they kind of did have a bracket coverage in a sense, having number 0 underneath and having number 8 over the top of him. But obviously, he's Dade, not Dade, but Waddell Clark is pretty much, equipped to know that, okay, I have a quarterback who likes to run, who likes to extend plays. So even if they hold me initially, like I always say again, he's good at making the second play better than the first play. So even if they do hold defense on me good initially, once he rolls out, now I'm free to create and do whatever I want to do. So right here, you see that he was actually behind the defense on this play right here. And I think, like I said, him rolling out and extending the play, the defense probably got a little bit undisciplined with, sticking to him, and he was just able to get behind him. So that's one of the things that they're most definitely going to have to do come Friday night, is not, become undisciplined when the quarterback takes off running, or even when the coverage is good initially. You're going to have to play up into the snap, until the whistle is blown, because if not, man, you can give up some explosive plays downfield. And right here, him rolling out to his right, being that he's a right-handed quarterback, actually, allowed for him to be able to get much more power in this than you may have wanted to. But, he kind of overshoots him on this. But that's one of the things that they're going to have to stay disciplined is in their pass coverage downfield. So right here, this wasn't their last offensive possession of the first half. They ended up punting the ball after this, gave the ball back to Ruston. Ruston ended up shooting themselves in the foot with a lot of offensive penalties. And then the defense did a good job at standing up when they needed to. So they punted the ball back to Ouachita. But, I mean, it wasn't really too much of nothing going on based off of the time and based off of the lack of timeouts that they had. I mean, Connor had picked up some pretty big scrambles to put them in good position. I think kind of similar to where they're at now on this drive. But it ended up resulting in no points being scored. It ended up just going to halftime, being the score that it is right now. But right here on this play, they was trying to run another screen pass, like we seen on one of the other third downs where they ran a screen pass to the running back. Right here, they were throwing back across the formation. It looks like to the tight end. And if they would have been able to get the ball to him, he had some guys out in front of him to be able to lead charge, but the defense ended up getting to him. And see, when he kind of rolled out, I think that his eyes wasn't really looking at the defense, but when he rolled out and now when he went back to throw, I think he kind of was like, oh man, and trying to get the ball out, and ended up up, kind of sliding down. And I think they counted this as like a lateral pass, which ended up pushing them even farther behind the stick. So that led to them punting the ball. Like I said, man, the main thing that Ruston most definitely is going to have to do is be able to keep him contained. And the thing about it was that a lot of his runs was like, I think were really designed quarterback runs. And so it's the difference between a designed quarterback run and a scramble. So let's just say, for instance, when you scramble, you know, you don't have blockers in a sense. You know, everybody's blocking the line. The offensive line is dropping back to try to create lanes for you and to be able to, you know, create to get protection for you so you can throw the ball. Now, when you're doing designed quarterback runs, the offensive line is blocking forward opposed to blocking backwards now. So it makes it that much deadlier. And then you have to think about it too. So think about on a typical play. Think about a typical play, running play, right? When the quarterback hands the ball off to the running back. So when he hands the ball off to the running back, the quarterback usually steps out the backfield and gets out the way, right? So now whenever the quarterback is when you're doing design quarterback runs with the quarterback, now that running back that typically would have been a quarterback that would have just been getting out the way on the run play, now that running back is an extra blocker. So in a sense, you have an extra blocker for the quarterback. So you have 10 guys blocking for you. So that creates more opportunities for you to be able to run, for the quarterback to be able to run. So that's what was killing them a lot. And even on the pass plays when it wasn't designed QB runs, they were getting back there pressure wise. They just couldn't make the tackles on him because he's so quick, shifty, agile that, you know, more times not the first person that got to him, they weren't going to be able to bring him down. So that's one of the things that kind of scares me about the team this year is just that same penetration that they was getting up front consistently last year. That's just not necessarily that this year. A lot of it has had to result in blitzes and things of that nature. So whenever you blitzing now, you take possibilities of having spies out. And then whenever you blitzing, if you're trying to blitz and spy, now you're taking guys out of pass coverage. So now you're leaving one-on-ones across the boards. And I mean, matching up with Waddell Clark, that's just not a one-on-one situation that you want to find yourself in consistently, you know, if anything. But, you know, that's going to be the biggest thing, man. I think it's really just going to be the being able to try to get penetration up front, winning on first and second down, and just being able to make those open field tackles. Like I say, you know, at the end of the day, you want to make sure as a defense, we're not tackling Macario Day, tackling Connor, tackling Waddell on one person. We want it to be a team effort. But in some situations, you're going to find yourself in one-on-one situations where you might have to try to be, if not bring him down, slow him down. You don't want him to be able to just catch the ball and outrun you or make one move and get upfield because now he's able to eat up a lot more yards before your team is able to pursue. And that's another thing too. Can they actively pursue consistently, whether they're fatigued, whether they're frustrated, whether they're tired, or can they stay disciplined, you know, for 4 quarters? So that's going to be one of the biggest things. But man, if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, man, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, make sure that you click that notification bell, where you be notified every time I upload, and I'll see y'all in the next video.